Iran. Reza Pahlavi, exiled son of Iran's toppled Shah, has urged Iran's armed and security forces to side with the people and called for more protests amid persisting unrest in the country, triggered by deepening distress over economic hardships. Let's listen into what Mr. Pahlavi has shared.
مستقیم خطاب به نیروهای مسلح و امنیتی ایران است. شما که لباس نظامی بر تن کرده اید تا از ملت ایران دفاع کنید و اینک در معرض یک انتخاب تاریخی قرار دارید.
Meanwhile, Australia is urging its citizens to leave Iran as soon as possible, warning that the security situation in the country is rapidly deteriorating. Canberra says ongoing nationwide protests could escalate without warning and has advised Australians to avoid all travel to Iran. The government has also warned that Australians, including dual nationals, face a high risk of detention, adding that its embassy operations are currently suspended. India has issued a similar advisory urging its citizens to avoid non-essential travel and stay away from protest areas. Iran has seen widespread unrest in recent weeks, driven by economic strains, a falling currency, and reports of violence in multiple sites. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Ross Feingold. He's a political analyst, joins us live from Taipei. Thank you very much, Mr. Feingold, for joining us once again. Good to see you. Now looking at this, who exactly is Mr. Reza Pahlavi, and what significance does he hold in commenting from outside as an Iranian diaspora towards Iranian people? Does he have any effectiveness, I must say?
Yeah, but both your questions are highly relevant to the ongoing situation. So he is the son of the former and deposed leader, or Shah, as they call it in Iran, the former royal leader. But does he really have popularity and influence in Iran itself? We don't know, but frankly, the safe assumption to that is no. And the reason why we could safely say that is, even without any on-the-ground polling information to give us an answer one way or the other, we have a lot of recent experience, specifically in the Middle East, where exiled politicians, people involved in exile groups or dissident groups or groups that opposed the government, came back after being abroad for literally decades and leading opposition to the government, and they had no popularity with the public. That doesn't mean the public dislike them per se, but they don't know who these people are, other than they've been vocal opponents and lived abroad, when there are people often who've been on the ground, who've been opponents of the previous regimes, people who've served time in jail, for example, or led armed rebellions. So there's always going to be alternative leaders who have more popularity with the public, whether that's amid ongoing protests or in the event that there's a change in government. So although he gets a lot of media attention, he could travel to different capitals around the world, whether that's Washington, D.C., London, Paris, or Jerusalem, and get meetings with government leaders in other countries. Is the public in Iran waiting for him to come back and take the reins of leadership? The answer to that is probably no.
Thank you for highlighting that. And do you think he is eyeing some kind of political power or some kind of influence in Iran in case the regime falls?
Clearly he is. It doesn't matter what he says to deny it, or if he says something like it's up to the people, or I favor a constitutional monarchy, if that's what the public wants. He wouldn't be traveling the world and making statements and being active on social media if he didn't want a political role in a post-theocracy Iran. So clearly he does. And if he denies that, he's just not being honest. Again, whether or not the public in Iran wants him or hopes that he comes back and fulfills that kind of role, the answer is probably no. We don't know for sure, but it's safe to say that he wants to be relevant. Otherwise, he would fade into oblivion. He wouldn't be trying to maintain a public role as he's currently doing.
And Mr. Feingold, what more can you tell us about the current situation that's unfolding in Iran?
It's accumulated frustrations. Now, over the past 15 years or so, there's been multiple large-scale protests in Iran over what ultimately tells us is the same set of issues. Sometimes it's frustration with the state of the economy. Sometimes it's frustration with corruption. Sometimes it's frustration with the very heavy-handed repression of the authorities, whether that's forcing women to wear headscarves or other types of restrictions on what people could say or what they could watch online or on television or in movie theaters. So the frustrations of the public are very well known. Sometimes there's different trigger points that cause people to come out onto the streets. So, for example, one of the previous ones which caused large-scale protests was the murder by the authorities of a young lady because the authorities who grabbed her off the street said she wasn't wearing the proper headdress. This time it seems to be more related to the state of the economy and inflation and really the dire state of economic growth and the future, that people really don't have any expectations anymore that they could better themselves because the country is facing such dire or strict international sanctions based on the decisions of the leadership. So the trigger points could be different from protest to protest, but the group of issues that causes the public to go to the streets is very well known.
Thank you for highlighting that. Very insightful indeed. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Ross Feingold for joining us today and sharing that insight.